the Golden State Warriors, they seem to be in a bit of a stronghold with Jonathan Kuminga holding up any of those moves that they would like to make in the offseason. They're one of the only teams that have essentially done nothing over the last couple of months. So let's dive in and have a chat about from fantasy basketball perspective. G'day everybody, welcome back to the Ball Logic Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host Braino and I'm joined by the Horse, mate. We've got the Golden State Warriors up next, and little birdie tells me they may be your team as opposed to the Charlotte Hornets. How do you respond?
Yeah, I love that the truth comes out. I've always been a big Warriors man, running back to the TMC days. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin. Going through the pain of Donnie Nelson giving up 150 points a night while we were scoring 140. Monte Ellis into drafting Steph Curry. Even Eric Paschal and the likes when we struggled when Curry was done for the year in 2020. So, yeah, I could reel off the good times and the bad times, but I feel like the bad times are starting to come back with a very aging list.
Yeah, look, I don't know how optimistic I am about how the Warriors go this year. Obviously, there's still a lot of moving parts, and I guess, to keep the theme of the way we've been doing these team previews, we're up to the Golden State Warriors because simply it's their turn in the alphabetical order, which is the best way to do things in my opinion. But there's a lot to happen yet, isn't there? Like, it seems like the Jonathan Kuminga trade, or it's very clear that the Jonathan Kuminga potential trade, or the thought of a trade, is holding up pretty much every other move they'd like to make in this offseason.
It's baffling, isn't it? You've got Curry, who's turning 38. Jimmy Butler, I believe he's turning 37. Draymond's as old as the hills as well. They're linked to an aging Al Horford, who will turn 40 next year. You would think that a team with as many ancient players as they have age-wise would go out and recruit youth, but it seems to be going the other way.
It does seem to be going the other way. It seems to be that they still think that they're in this competitive window, and I think you have to be in that competitive mindset when you've got Steph Curry on your team. I don't think they'd settle for anything less. I think they're trying to utilise or make the most of his last few years in the NBA. So, while you've got Steph Curry on your team, and also, let's face it, Jimmy Butler, still a very solid option, solid player on a roster. Draymond Green, very competitive guy. I can't imagine these guys are going to be looking to tank or anything like that while Steph Curry's in this team. So, they'll give it a red hot crack, mate. But we are here to talk about fantasy basketball. But let's rewind. You talked about the good times and the not so good times. How did you see last year?
Okay, without being fantastic. Definitely highlighted our lack of any sort of interior presence. You got Trace Jackson Davis, who I hope develops an outside shot. He's good at the pick and roll, but there's not much else there as a 6'10" center, highlighted by that poster dunk that he had on Wembanyama there against the Spurs. You got Quinton Post, however you pronounce his surname, or however you'd like to pronounce his surname. He's good for stretching the floor, but still pretty raw when we're talking NBA centers. There's not much there. You've got Draymond, Jimmy, and Steph. They're your core three. Podziemski, I feel like, is going to settle into the 2 role this year. Of course, there's no Andrew Wiggins anymore. He's off to Miami. So it's time that your Kumingas, if you're still there or not, it's yet to be seen. Your Moses Moody's, these guys have really got to step up now.
Yeah, Moses Moody, obviously not someone that we're looking at that deeply from a fantasy perspective. I think we'll talk about him later as a bit of a late round flyer. But you're right. It's the center position for me that is probably the biggest question mark around whether they end up going with Trace Jackson Davis or whether they go with Quinton Post. We'll talk about that. I think we've got an opinion either way for that. So we'll cover that, mate. But normally we talk about the signings that this team has made in the offseason. They have made none. Nothing of value anyway. I don't think that's going to help us in this episode anyway. We'll probably come back and cover it a little bit later on when things are a little bit more solidified for the Golden State Warriors. But at this point in time, there is nothing happening in the signings section. What are you thinking about in terms of how they go this year? Obviously, there's a lot that is centered around the health of their point guard. Let's assume he stays healthy. How do you feel like they're going to go?
I think it's going to be the start of the natural regression for the Golden State Warriors. So we speak about Steph, who's turning 38 during the next season. It's almost impossible for him or for us to expect that he's going to play 75 games in an NBA season now. They talk about your back-to-backs and being able to rest players, and I'm sure Steph will want to play as many games as he can, but it's fact that as you start to get older, it's harder to keep your body in prime condition for that amount of time. LeBron is probably the only one that you can think of that's got the most out of his body at that age. And Steph being a smaller guard, being bumped around, being held off screens, I feel like it's going to take a toll on his body. And Golden State's win-loss record, I don't want to harp on it too much, but it's based on the health of Steph.
Yeah, it is. They went 48 and 34 last year. I'd say we're probably looking at something a little bit similar, maybe even around that 45 win mark. Yeah. For me, I'd say, I probably agree with you. A little bit of natural progression there regression, I should say, from the Warriors. And look, I think guys like Brandin Podziemski and Moses Moody and that there is word around the Jonathan Kuminga trade that Malik Monk is probably the guy that these guys are going to be targeting. The Kings seem pretty interested. So if they can get Malik Monk, obviously, as that secondary ball handler in this lineup, along with guys like Jimmy Butler who can handle the ball and bring it up the court, I think there's some things to like there.
There is.
But it is centered around Jonathan Kuminga, so we can't really deliberate too much until we know what's happening in that side of things, mate. I think the best place to start is with the Top Guns, right? There's only one man, I think, that sits in this kind of top 36. We could talk top 50, but let's talk first 3 rounds. Steph Curry, ranked 10th last year, coming into his the age 38 season. So played 70 games last year. We're very impressive. The bloke's is got to be one of the fittest blokes in the NBA, really. With the amount of work and the amount of running he does off ball, had a really good season. 24.5 points, 6 assists, 4.5 rebounds a game, even a steal and a bit. It's the turnovers, obviously, and the field goal percentage that you're looking at when you're drafting Steph in fantasy basketball. It's a little bit of a negative there. I don't necessarily think you have to lean into a punt field goal percentage build with Steph Curry. I don't think he's that bad. But yeah, turnovers probably have to be something that you need to be wary of when you're drafting him. Where are you taking him?
For me, he's just outside the top 12 at the moment. He's sitting at 13th on my draft board. I still feel like you're getting that end of first round, early second round value out of Steph purely because the offense is going to run through him. We know this. You look through their roster and he's the best shooter. He's the best offensively on that side. Everything good that happens with the Golden State Warriors goes through Steph Curry's hand. So for me, still very safe. Back end first, early second round. My first round pick, I need to be 100% confident that they're going to play a lot of games. And yeah, he played 70 last year, but again, it's another season on the books. It's another season where he's going to have all of the attention on him. I've got him at 14 on my draft board at the moment. If he could be a perfect person to pair with someone you get back around. If you got the 10th pick in your draft, you could get him on the turn in the second round, I think, realistically. It's just the household name of Steph Curry, I think, that people are going to jump at. So if he's there at 14, 15 for me, I'm happy to take him. But I don't think I'd be comfortable taking him at anywhere above 8, 9. No.
At the moment on ESPN and in Fantrax, the ADP at the moment for Steph Curry is 14.5. So I think they're pretty spot on. There's a lot of ADPs I don't agree with, but I reckon that's pretty spot on for Steph Curry.
I agree.
Mate, I wouldn't call anybody else a top gun, so let's move into the mid-range value. Your opportunity. The ADP that I don't agree with, we just mentioned, now Jimmy Butler is going pretty low. He's going in around 67 as a blend between ESPN and Fantrax, I think in the 50s and 70s alike, which I think is insane, personally. He's the 45th best player last year, Jimmy Butler. But before the All-Star break, obviously before he went to Golden State, he was the 57th best player. And then when he got traded, he became the 32 best player after the All-Star break. I think that Jimmy Butler made Steph Curry a better player, and this is something we didn't just mention. Steph Curry, after the All-Star break, was the 4th best player in fantasy basketball last year. So, there's got to be a link there. As soon as he gets a bit of help on the offensive end, Steph Curry becomes a god. And Jimmy Butler goes up 25 spots in the rankings after the All-Star break when he gets traded to a different team. So, for me, if we can get more of that 32, 33 Jimmy Butler, that's where I'm probably taking him. I think at the moment I've got him in the 30s. I'll quickly find him in our draft board, mate, and I'll give everybody an idea on what they're thinking. But how do you feel about Jimmy Butler this year?
I'm on board with you, mate. The games played is a little bit of a worry, 55 games, but we know that he sat out most of those games at Miami because he just wasn't happy there. So with teams having to guard Steph Curry and I guess game plan for Steph Curry as much as they did, it sort of opened up a bit of offense for Jimmy Butler and being able to get to work. He's over 500 from the field, almost 85% from the line, 17.5 points, 5.4 rebounds, 5.4 assists, 1.4 steals. He doesn't turn the ball over, which, just a tick over one turnover per game. Fantastic for fantasy basketball. I see him more as a top 40 player rather than these 60s and 70s that ADPs have got going at him. So if he's sitting at 45, 50 and you're drafting, this is one of my bolters when we're talking ADPs at the moment, but I really like Jimmy Butler on the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I think he does good things for Steph. And I guess it also creates probably a little bit of a logjam when we're talking starting five. We'll give you our predictions at the end of the show. But the problem is, can Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green be on the floor at the same time? Both really don't have a three ball. So it makes it quite tricky. I know you got Steph Curry on the court and Brandin Podziemski shot the three at a good clip last year. I think it was 38%. So for me, I'm those two can shoot the three ball, but Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green might struggle to coexist to a certain degree. And I think obviously Jonathan Kuminga he just shoots the piss out of it. So when you've got blokes like that on the court at the same time, it makes it challenging to work out what your optimal starting five is for the Warriors. So that's probably something Steve Kerr is going to have to work through this year if they still have Kuminga on the roster, which it sounds like he's going to be there to start the year. To
start the year, yes. Do I think he's going to be there by the end of the year? No.
Not a chance. No, they'll definitely be working on a trade. It's just a matter of when, not if. But yeah, Jimmy Butler, I've got at the 30. I've got 31. You've got 37 on the draft board, which I think is probably the range in the 30s to 40s. Late third round, early fourth round, I would be trying to grab Jimmy Butler, in my opinion. I'd love to get Matrix's opinion though, because he's got him in the 50s. So we'll have to find out and get him on a Golden State Warriors show, or hit him up when we do a draft. Find out what he's thinking. Mate, who else? Who else are we looking at? Draymond Green, probably a guy that you'd be looking at. Obviously, a really good out of position center guy. For me, out of position assist guy, I should say. 5.6 assists per game, 1.5 steals, 1 block per game. Turnovers, obviously, 2.6, not ideal. Does handle the ball a lot more than what you would expect a center or power forward to be doing. What do you reckon? Do you reckon they roll with him at the power forward this year and try and keep him away from the center position as much as possible?
I hope so. I really do hope so. I hope he's been working on his corner threes, because I feel like they're a better team when he's not guarding the center spot. At 6'6", 6'7", Draymond Green shouldn't be guarding centers. I understand that he's a good defender, but as old as what he is, he can't keep banging bodies and expect to get his 68 to 70 games of the year out of him. So for Draymond, hopefully he's developed or has been working on some sort of outside shot. His field goal percentage hurts, though. 42% from the field, under 70% from the line as well. So as good as those assists, steals, and blocks are, he hurts you percentages-wise from the field.
He does, absolutely. I think he's one of those counting stat guys. He gets your stocks. So, one of those guys that won't ever let you down. He'll probably help you win a steal in a block category, but yeah, he will hurt you in field goal percentage. He'll hurt you free throw percentage. He's not a big points guy. He doesn't shoot threes, and he does turn the ball over at a decent clip. So there are a few negatives there to Draymond Green, which is probably why, I think around the 100 mark is accurate. I'd be looking at, so it looks like ESPN people are taking him at 113. Fantrax are taking him at 95. So I think that's a pretty good range. I tend to agree with both of those. Brandin Podziemski is probably the other guy I think that we're looking at around this space. Now, obviously, he's came on in leaps and bounds in the playoffs last year. In different periods when he got the opportunity, he had a really good playoff game or two. It did struggle at different times as well, but I think all in all, you could call it a relatively successful season for Brandin Podziemski. For me, it's, the usage is pretty up there as well. Kind of we're pushing 20 usage. He ran the second unit at times as well for the Golden State Warriors. He finished 139th best player last year. Again, we're looking at a field goal percentage deficit, 11.7 points, 5 boards, 3.5 assists and a steal a game. Turnovers are good though, 1.2 turnovers. So shot the 3-ball really nicely last year, 1.8 threes per game. So, yeah, I feel like there's probably a natural step in progression for Podziemski this year, especially as Steph gets a bit older. Maybe he plays 2 or 3 minutes less. Maybe there's more opportunity for him to be The guy handling the ball in the second unit as well. So, and also I think we underestimate how important it is to have someone who can shoot the three ball on the court when it's Draymond. It could be Trace Jackson-Davis on the court as well at the same time as Jimmy Butler. Like, if you've got those three guys on the court at the same time, you're going to need a couple of options from the perimeter.
Oh, 100%. And you took the words out of my mouth when you're talking about Podziemski. Do the Warriors start to naturally progress into him handling the ball a little more and then running Steph Curry off more screens off ball to try and limit those drives to the basket where he's getting smashed? He is getting older. Do his assists go up? Does his time or his usage go up as well? I really like Podziemski in this squad, and 158 -1 last year, 139 overall. I think you can nudge into the top 100 this year, fantasy-wise.
Yeah, it's all opportunity dependent, but I think, he's locked into that 2 spot to start. Obviously, Moses Moody's probably the only man there that can really challenge him, depending on the rotation. Buddy Hield, we've also got in this squad that we've got to talk about. But yeah, it's I think he's the preferred option there and the more reliable option. And to be fair, out of position rebounds are also, pretty relevant for him as well. He can get you 5 rebounds a game. That's pretty handy for that category. So, mate, let's have a chat about the late round guys you can get at the end of your draft. You're simply the best of the rest. I don't know whether we're drafting any of these guys, but I think we're probably more talking now streaming categories, right? And I guess the best 3 streamer in the game, to be fair, is Buddy Hield.
100%. He's always been a really good shooter from outside, but in this squad, you're either getting, as you would say, rocks or diamonds. He could either be really hot or really, really not. So Buddy Hield, he's your 3 streamer, 2.5 threes per game. But I'm going to throw it to you, Braino. I think Kuminga can be a back-end draftable player this year because, yes, there's this contract dispute with Golden State right now. Are they just going to put him on the floor and go, here you go, maximize your draft or your trade value in these next 15 to 20 games and get maximum return for him?
They can't sit him. No. It would just make everybody look silly. And we saw what he did in the playoffs last year. He averaged like 26 points a game when he got that opportunity against the Timberwolves in the playoff series they lost. So, they lost every game, though. That's probably the downside, is that they got smashed 4-1 in that playoff series, but Kuminga popped off. And my concern with Kuminga, is he comes across as just a points guy. Like, he doesn't defend well. He doesn't really get you stocks. He doesn't even have a steal a game. 0.8 and 0.4 blocks per game, 1.5 turnovers, so he can definitely turn the ball over. 15 points a game, that's all well and good, but when you can't shoot a free throw at 66%, 45% from the floor, you're getting hurt in way more categories than you're actually having any benefit. So for me, I like Jonathan Kuminga as a player, but he just seems like a scorer at this point. He's just a points guy that you can pick up late in your draft. But I do think that there is a logic there to potentially stash him, knowing that a trade is coming, and he could be ending up in a much better position like in Sacramento.
For sure.
So I don't mind that. Buddy Hield, 3 streamer. Moses Moody, probably the only other guy I would be looking at to draft, but even then I'm looking at him maybe when the injury hits, inevitably at some point during the season, he'll get his opportunity there. Quentin Post, mate. Let's have a quick chat about him, or maybe we should move to our projected starting 5, because that'll probably lead into this conversation, mate. I think it's pretty obvious. Steph Curry at point guard, Brandin Podziemski at the 2, and I guess there's a couple of different routes that we can go here. What are you thinking, mate, in terms of what the 3-4-5 looks like?
I think it'll be Jimmy Butler at the 3, Draymond Green at the 4, and then I feel like it's going to be a toss-up between Quentin Post and Trace Jackson-Davis.
Yep.
If you've got Draymond at the 4 and then Trace Jackson-Davis at the 5, you've got 2 players that can't really stretch the floor, and it limits space. So if Draymond's at the 4, I feel like they've got to go with Quentin Post at the 5. But if they get creative and go, all right, we'll play Kuminga at the 3, Butler at the 4, then they could afford to go Trace Jackson-Davis at the 5. That all of a sudden becomes a really nice defensive unit. And you could have Draymond Green as your backup 4, backup 5, maybe playing that point forward position off the bench, but also being able to guard the team's best power forward, small forward, center player on the other side. So there's a couple of ways this could go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, they toyed with the idea of having Draymond Green off the bench last year in different periods, and it seemed to go relatively well for them in what you just mentioned, having that ball handler, a guy that can bring the ball up the court. I think it was quoted that Steve Kerr said that they want to avoid having Draymond Green at the 5 as much as possible. So that makes much more sense to me, I think. They've got Trace Jackson-Davis, who's good in the paint. Sadly, doesn't stretch the floor. I think I went and had a look at his last 10 or 15 games from last year, and he shot 0 from 32 from downtown. So, sadly, wasn't afraid to shoot it, but, probably shouldn't have in scenarios like that. Whereas Quentin Post, good three-point shooter, stretches the floor really well, shoots a lot of them, and made a lot of them, to be fair. He actually shot the ball really nicely at the back end of last year. So, for me, I'm looking at it going, it's all starting 5 dependent, but I think it's Post that starts if you're going to have Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler on the court at the same time.
Sure.
But I do agree with you that I think Trace Jackson-Davis is the guy if they do decide to go with Draymond off the bench and use Kuminga to boost his trade value up, because again, we know it's a game of ducks and drakes, really, isn't it? At this time, start of the year. Got to try and and their priority will be to move off him as quick as possible if he isn't buying into the culture there. For me, why would you want somebody that's not buying in, that doesn't want to be there, that's actively asking for a trade, they're turning down your best offer, they're at a stalemate. So, you've got to get that toxicity out of the dressing room.
There's a bit of Jordan Poole about this scenario.
Yeah, not good. Not good for the Warriors. I think they're going to want to move away from that as quick as possible. But, mate, that'll do us for the Golden State Warriors. Of course, we've got plenty more team previews coming up. I think we're probably through nearly a third of them now. So we'll keep smashing them out. We'll have a mock draft coming to you every single week as well. So keep an eye out on that, and plenty of other content. So if you want to support the show, make sure you hit subscribe and hit that like button to help it get out to more people. We do appreciate it. Mate, we'll be back for some future episodes. Looking forward to it.
100%.
Catch you later, guys.
Peace.